We're so official. Welcome. Thanks for joining. I know a lot of you have messaged me that you weren't available for tonight. Sorry, I know I made it on Monday night thinking that a rest day would be best for folks. Plus, come on, Monday after maybe working all day, let's just shoot the shit and drink some protein shakes. Okay. I also do want to apologize because I am fresh from a workout. I'm not quite hypoxic. So I do have my wits about me, but if I don't make any sense, just I expect, Jordan and Veronica to like tell me that I'm not making any sense for the recording, just for the sake of the recording. So there were some questions that were sent in. Thank you so much. I'm not going to identify any names just because one of them is kind of a health related question. And I obviously for privacy purposes, like I don't want to out anyone. But it is also a similar situation that quite a few folks are experiencing. So I have a handful of questions. I know Jordan, Veronica also have some questions as well. And we're just going to dive on in. And then we're just going to kind of gab. But I'm going to turn the gabbing session, because we already gabbed a little bit. I'm going to turn the second gabbing session, if we have one at the end, off. So you don't see that recording because, Okay, so first things first, training cycle explanation, because I just want to make sure that folks know that you can kind of peek inside my little like mad scientist brain a little bit. If you're in the app and you click on, or you tap on the kettlebell icon, that's the program tab. The first like couple of sentences are always going to explain like, hey, this is what's going on. We're really focusing on these parts of the body right now. And I just give you a little bit of like an intro level understanding of kind of what we're doing this cycle. So right now we're in a three-week cycle because we are biking more often. I don't want to spend 2 weeks at a heavier or more intense period, with you doing more resistance, more weights, maybe even more reps or sets and things like that, like we do generally during the fall and winter, which are our key strength building seasons. So because we're biking more, our legs are just going to be more fatigued, and I don't want to just have you feeling absolutely trashed. I mean, I do obviously factor in a deload every 8 weeks. There's always going to be a deload, especially now with you all riding more. But that's the reason what we're doing 3 weeks at a nice steady, okay, doing the same movements, doing the same routine. And then that final 4th week, you can up the ante if you want to, because I leave that up to you. It's totally up to you. I mean, please know you're still increasing strength, because guess what? Like I just did day 1 just now, like right beforehand. And I mean, even compared to last week, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm already starting to feel better, with some of these movements, like, yep, starting to feel better. It's just starting to feel easier. Even though I'm doing the same weight, it's just starting to feel easier to me. And that's a sign that you're progressing, that you are getting stronger, that you are advancing. Okay. So don't think that you need to have like massive amounts of weight on the barbell or on your dumbbells or on your bands or anything like that. If anything, just maybe increase the reps as you see fit. And then, play around with your exhaustion levels a little bit. Like if you're a little too exhausted, kind of pull back a little bit. Or if you're feeling really good that day, then maybe up the ante a little bit. But just so you know, it's 3 weeks on, 1 week off on purpose. We're biking more, we're having more fun, we're doing more downhilling. So it's just more miles on the leg, and more miles on the legs, plural, and more miles on the body. So I just want to be mindful of that versus fall and winter. Okay. Now, the things that we are focusing on right now, there's definitely going to be some grip strength work. For example, even in day 1 with the deadlifts, the Romanian deadlifts, you're not taking the weight all the way down to the ground. So you're gripping that weight a little bit more for a little bit longer. And that's on purpose. And I'm doing the sumo movement just to get a little bit more glute involvement, because again, I don't want to tax your quads too much, which is why the day 3 is optional. All right. And that's more of the quad-centric, squat-centric movements. And if you are biking a lot that week, great. Take the day 3 as an optional day. Don't do it, skip it if you want to, or just do it light, whatever you want. I'm also going to talk about picking and choosing some of the movements if you do want to do day 3, kind of what you can do. But please know there's definitely some grip work. So back to what I was talking about a moment ago, grip work, you're going to have it sneaked in. I don't know what the word is. You're going to have it in your program, kind of sneaky. All right. with things like the Romanian deadlift and, in the sumo form, because you're under load, you're gripping, whether it's dumbbells or barbell, it doesn't really matter. You're still doing that grip work for a little bit on the higher level of reps. We're not getting into 20 reps, but we're getting into usually right around like 6 to 15 or so within that 2 to 3 reps in reserve, right? So kind of playing around with that. And then of course, really opening up those hips on day one, that's going to be crucial because again, you're riding more. There's definitely been a couple of comments of folks having some pre-existing IT band stuff. So that's a reason why I'm still implementing a couple of these movements again, like the hip airplane. It's also a balance movement. So I'm sneaking in some balance stuff there too. But there are some sneaky movements here that help with IT band, or maybe your hips are just feeling a little bit locked up just from added racing or added riding. And this is a great way for you to kind of focus on a little bit of self-care while still doing some balance movements, as well as some movements to help get your body primed and ready for the rest of the workout. All right, so there's a reason for everything, I promise you. You're also going to notice some variations, like for example, the rear foot elevated split squats, but with a little bit of an isometric hold at the beginning and the end of the movement. That's on purpose because some of us are doing a little bit more downhill work right now. We're going to the bike parks more. Guess what? You're in that little split stance, kind of a split stance, stance to be redundant. And that is really going to help being in that isometric hold, holding that just for a few seconds. It's going to help with that muscular endurance that you need without taxing you by having you do 20 or 30 or more reps per set. Okay. So that's where there's a little bit of a difference there than anything. So that's kind of going over day one. With day two, just to give you a little bit of an idea, that's going to be more of the upper and core. And, keep in mind, another thing that I mentioned in the program tab is we're working on the strength of your calves, shoulders, adductors or inner thighs, and then low back and core. And then, the reason for that is because that's all going to help you feel really nice and stable and strong on and off the bike right now. Calves sounds so like bro-y and bodybuilding-esque, but it is on purpose. So the reason for the calves is because your feet, they're a major contact point on the bike. To have the flexibility in your calves, like that's why I ask in the eccentric calf raises to really focus on, doing that full range of motion. And that's on purpose because I really want you to open up those ankles some more, because ankle mobility limitations are a very common theme that we're seeing. And that I see period with a lot of cyclists. So if you ever have any Achilles pain or things like that, generally speaking, that can come from just a little bit of a less flexible ankle. All right. So I'm really trying to help you strengthen also your ankles and your calves, because that's going to help with that contact point if you're doing any jumps, if you're doing drops, because guess what? When you're dropping, you're landing, you're absorbing that trajectory, basically, that power, all of that. I mean, your body weight, the movement, the weight that you're sending into the air, all of that is landing. And I want you to be able to do it as strong and as safely as you possibly can. Okay. So all of that is on purpose. So calves sounds like a funny thing to work on, but that's the reason behind it. So again, day one, you're also going to do some calf work with the eccentric calf raises too. Now with shoulders, on to day two. My favorite. We're doing upper and core that day. So we're doing a lot of the face pulls to work your upper back. That will help stabilize your shoulders, rotator cuff muscles, things like that, the smaller muscles in the back. Again, we're still working on those external rotation as well as internal rotation, isometric holds with the shoulder. The longer holds are really going to help build those stabilizer muscles, those very tiny, small muscles in the shoulders. So there's a reason for it. And this is, I mean, honestly, the external rotation and internal rotation movements that I do with the shoulders, that's personally something that I unfortunately or fortunately need to do for the rest of my life. till I die for my shoulders, just because of, previous shoulder injuries, but also because I'm hypermobile, which I know a few of you are, and you've talked to me about that because I know it's something that you relate to. And, again, unfortunately, but also fortunately, in my opinion, working on this stuff for, forever is really what's going to benefit us and keep us as stable as possible. And it's really going to benefit everyone, regardless if you have shoulder stuff or not. So just so you know, we're still working on that a little bit. Now, of course, we're going to start to add in a little bit more stuff in the next cycle, just kind of keep it more interesting. So I'm not boring you all to death, but there's a reason that we always have a couple of movements carry over from cycle to cycle, because I want you to really focus on those movements and really drive them home. So yeah, shoulders, having stable shoulders, that's really going to help you. Again, on and off the bike kind of makes sense. I know this is one thing that most people kind of understand naturally, because I think a lot of us have fallen, or, we do a lot of technical work, or especially downhill work. And, on downhill, having that stable upper body is really going to help support you, keeping that chin over that stem, keeping your upper body over that bike to really balance your body weight more effectively, instead of hanging out in the back seat of your bike, which is not any place you really ever want to be unless you're on incredibly steep terrain. But even then, still want you to have that body weight centered over that bike. But in order to do that, got to have those stable shoulders. Okay. And that's why we do certain things, especially the single arm bench press this cycle, mixing it up. And in honesty, this is the first time I've ever in my life have done an offset single arm bench press. And I forgot what it was like. So I remembered when I tested it out, obviously a few weeks ago, but man, last week was my first cycle, because now I'm on everyone's cycle, since I had to skip a week or two with my torn quad, but I'm on everyone's cycle. So I'm on your exact cycle now. I'm not working ahead like I normally do. And that offset single arm bench press is so great. I forgot how good it was after I tested it, but it's great because you're working your glutes, which are going to be part of your core. So it's another part that we're working on this cycle, because your glutes are technically a part of your core, because it helps strengthen the trunk region, right? Keeps you upright. Helps also strengthen that pedal stroke, things like that. And then the bench press is going to help with your shoulder strength. This is going to be the frontal part of your shoulder. Now, one of the questions I had was about the split stance rotational row. Someone asked, my back feels like it's getting a gentle hug when doing rotational rows. Why? And that's honestly the best way to put it, because if you all have ever done yoga, and I know, some people have opinions about yoga, but yoga is fantastic. And the reason that yoga can feel so good for so many people, not only because they're putting the hips through the full range of motion and putting the back through the full range of motion, like, with flexion and extension, but they're also doing full range of motion with twists. You know how yoga is all about those twists. I mean, and that's why it feels so good. Like, even honestly, standing here at my standing desk, I'm trying to get into a better habit of just getting into that rotational movement, because it feels good to get in a plane that is outside of just going forwards and backwards and maybe laterally side to side. Getting into a little bit more of what we call like transverse plane and kind of getting more rotational work is just going to feel so good. And so thank you for those messages I've gotten. And thanks for this question. I really appreciate it, because this is something that my massage therapist and my physical therapist really recommend. It's just a lot more focus on rotational work, especially with a lot of the cyclists and mountain bikers that they work with. And keep in mind, like, they work with Olympic level folks. So these are really good movements just to help everyone. It doesn't matter if you're at the Olympics or not. All right. We're gonna be at the Olympics, right? That's right. All right. One question I had was, hey, if I don't have med ball, what do I do? And I know I kind of say, like, mimic this movement without the ball if needed. Yes, you're going to look a little weird, especially if you're at a gym that is, has other people present. That's fine. But literally just mimic that exact movement that is shown in the video, because with or without the ball is just going to add a little bit more resistance. So make sure that you're kind of moving through that motion with your imaginary friend, the ball. All right. Looks a little funny, but again. And then grip work. We're doing pinch grip. All right. Pinch grip. The C here that you see with my finger and my thumb That's going to be a general movement pattern for the thumb to strengthen this area, especially if you ever get any joint issues here, or if you've been like me and you try to carry in all the groceries in one trip and then you bend your thumb backwards. That was amazing last year. I'm sure some of you remember, but pinch grip is going to help with strengthening the same exact grip that you're going to need on the bike, on and off the bike, really. So if you want to carry in all your groceries in one go, this is going to help as well. One thing I did not put in the programming, and I apologize, diamond push-up. I didn't put that you can do this on your knees, just because I put it in the video instructions underneath the video. So I apologize. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the instructions here. So in case anyone had any questions about that. The Pelican raise, just enjoy it. The shoulder raise, again, it's a shoulder builder. All right. I'm going through this quickly because I know folks have some questions. And then day 3, again, this is optional. It's quads, pressing, things like that. Do really recommend at least trying to, if your legs are tired, I do really recommend at least trying to get the ATG lunges, just body weight, because I want you to get through that full range of motion as best as you can. Now, for those of you, there's a couple of folks who do have arthritic knees and don't really have a ton of cartilage and things like that. This is one of those movements that you probably would want to skip, should you have that. Hack squats are actually very good because it is going to be a little bit of a less load on your knees. So I would actually recommend doing the hack squats if you can, and you do have arthritic knees, or you do have like problems with your the joints themselves, just because again, that can put you at a little bit of a gentler movement pattern and a little bit of an angle and help you just be a little bit more upright versus, kind of doing back squats or front squats or things like that. So those are my suggestions in case I haven't messaged you about those things one-on-one. And yeah, and that's pretty much it. And then a lot of the lateral step up with slow lowering, slow eccentric, that again, that's working your inner thigh. So there's some sneaky things in here that help with some inner thigh work. And I wanted to explain why we're working on inner thigh. If you've ever biked behind someone, and now mountain biking is kind of the exception, but if you ever like gravel ride or road ride behind someone, or you see someone when you're driving and they're riding a bike and they're riding their bike, and especially on road and gravel, like I said, but their knees are out and they're kind of riding like this. Generally speaking, that's a really solid sign that they have weak inner thigh muscles, okay? Because their inner thigh muscles are unable to kind of help them track their knees over their toes a little bit more effectively on the pedal stroke, okay? So hopefully that kind of helps you understand why. And it's a very common weakness that we can see really across a broad domain of athletes, but especially cyclists and mountain bikers, especially, if you're trained a certain way, you are taught to keep your knees out a little bit, kind of have that cowboy or cowgirl stance on the bike, because you want to be able to move the bike underneath you. You want to have that bike be dynamic underneath you as you go over technical terrain and things like that. That is totally fine. Still want you to obviously keep those knees out, but in order to keep yourself as stable as possible, having a really strong, solid base with inner thigh is really going to help. Also, having stronger inner thigh muscles or adductors, it's going to help with IT band stuff. So a couple folks I know having like just chronic IT bands from track days and other sports. I can't remember the other sport that someone else was in. I think martial arts, but IT band, like having overly tight IT band, fairly common. Hopefully you can get around to doing some of the mobility flows. I'm renaming some stuff. So I'm still learning and still kind of improving the program. So now you can go in under the kettlebell tab in the app and you can look at the 3 mobility programs that I have. So I have all of the mobility programs in there labeled mobility. That way you can see them all in a row and you're not having to look at different names without the word mobility in the front. Sounds stupid, but it will help you find these things a little bit better. Now, keep in mind, one of the particular mobility programs that I have is a post-ride unwind. This is pretty much going to be fairly standard. I will mix it up every couple of cycles, just a little bit, like I recently did, because I went ahead and made couch stretch first. If you have no time to do anything, or how about let me rephrase that. If you have no time to do everything in this flow, at least do the couch stretch if you've been biking, especially if you're having like some hip stuff and also some low back stuff. There is a little bit of a correlation between hip and quad tightness and low back pain. So I'd really love for folks to just try where they are, see where they are in the couch stretch, at least do that. That is one of these things, I swear that's going to be one of these reels that I make on social media, because I think it's so important for the post-ride wind down of just really trying to get those couple of key parts. And I feel like it's low back, hips, sometimes knees for some folks, sometimes grip, but I really feel like if you could at least do the couch stretch. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And then I have obviously some hip internal rotation and things like that. And also the standing IT band stretch. So stretching it is good. Like if you're having some IT band issues and tightness, yeah, stretching it is good, but then also strengthening the area around it can be really, really beneficial. So doing maybe the psoas march that I have in day 3, like maybe that's a good thing. If you don't have time to do all of day 3, again, just pick and choose. Like, I'm not going to take this personally. I want this to be approachable for you. So I would recommend doing the psoas march, and I would recommend doing the ATG lunges, bodyweight ATG lunges, especially if you do have some tight IT bands or just hips. And then, if that's all you can do, great. That's all you can do. It's fine. There's a reason I purposely program a lot of the things that I definitely want people to hit this cycle in days 1 and 2, because, like rotational row, I want everyone to do that. I want everyone's spine to feel like it's being hugged. Okay. And I want you to get into that rotation, because that's really going to help you, first of all, get through that help you with your full range of motion, especially in your T-spine, your thoracic region in your spine, which helps because you've been over bike for a long period of time. But I want you to just feel good, ultimately. Like, I want folks to feel a little less pain, a little less achiness, and stronger on their climbs and stronger on their bike rides. And please keep sending me those messages. Like, when you all have like a kick-ass bike ride, even if it's a shitty ride, like, I want to know about it. But like, if you all have like a really great ride, I would love to know about it. And especially if you're feeling a difference between the last time you rode, if maybe it was before like Shred Strong and to now, like stuff like that. Seriously, makes me feel good to know that I'm at least programming certain things that really feel good to you. And again, it's not like an ego stroke by any means, because a lot of times I'll get a message from folks saying, hey, I really feel like this particular movement benefits me. Like, it feels really good. Like, I feel XYZ stretch or whatever. Like, I love that. I love the specificity. But even the general statements are really good too, just because it kind of helps me know, okay, great, I'll keep this going, or I'll stop this. All right, so 3 questions that I had. First one, I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. And I apologize for talking about something that's in current news, but I think it needs to be said just in case you happen to be hit with the Rona. COVID recovery and getting back to training and bike rides. Someone asked about timelines and suggestions. I'm not a doctor, as you all know, but I do play one on TV. No, I'm just kidding. I do follow med Twitter religiously. For those of you who don't know, I worked in research for like 12 years, so I kind of nerd out on this stuff. And that's not meant to sound dark, but I do nerd out on pandemics and everything, because I did initially do viral research. So I love reading what the epidemiologists say. Generally speaking, in med Twitter, and you can follow these feeds if you want to, there's a wonderful COVID Twitter feed. And their suggestions, generally speaking, are to take the first 2 weeks easy. When you have active viral infection, please sit your ass on a couch in your bed. I want you to stay hydrated. I want you to listen to your doctor's orders. If you are available for any type of viral treatment, please take it, like, please listen to your doctor. But the big thing is to obviously stay hydrated, take in electrolytes, especially if you are having GI upset and things like that. Eat however you can, all right? Focus as much as you can, obviously, on protein, but I know some folks have had some GI symptoms, so listen to that. But big thing here, especially if you have had multiple infections, you do want to pay key attention to just the potential impact of potentially having long COVID, all right? Vaccinated or not, doesn't matter. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole today, but I will say it's really key in what they're starting to discover anecdotally. They haven't done formal research on this yet, that has been peer reviewed, I should say. But what they're finding is, especially if it's like your second or third infection, just your risk of long COVID increases a little bit. So please, that's why it's important. Like, I mean, don't feel pressure. If you miss a week or two of this, don't feel pressure. Like, seriously, reach out to me. I'll bump you back. Like, I'll bump your payment back a couple weeks. Like, that shit doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is your damn health. Like, I want you to feel good and I want you to still bike, but I also don't want you to be stressed because you're missing a couple weeks of Shred Strong. Shred Strong's not going anywhere. Like, this is my baby. This is my training. This is what I love to do. And like, this is not going anywhere. So if you miss a couple weeks, it's not the end of the world. But I want you to sleep and I want you to take care of yourself. And your first couple bike rides back and your first couple workouts back, try to keep your heart rate as low as you possibly can comfortably. Check in with yourself. How's your breathing doing? You know, and even if it's doing well and your heart rate's not necessarily elevating and your breathing's still fairly steady for you, please, those first couple of weeks, especially if this is, you know, multiple infection for you, just still try not to listen to that ego that's telling you, I feel great. Like, let me go ahead and I'm just gonna pedal my ass off. Just try not to do that, okay? Just at least give yourself a couple weeks. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna get off my soapbox because I would just hate for folks to have long COVID, because that's just not something that we just don't know enough about, okay? Much love to everyone who is going through that right now. I feel like I'm in the last like phase of Mario Brothers with the fire wands right now. And then one other person asked, hey, is there, you know, possibility for more core work? So that's the other thing that's kind of snuck in or sneaked in, whatever the word is, in the programming is core work. So a lot of the rotational stuff, the rotational rows, even the psoas marches, you know, that's obviously doing core work. So it's not going to necessarily be your common like crunches, generally speaking. Not to say that that stuff is not good. It is, it's good. Like core flexion and extension, really good. Or back extension and flexion. But, excuse me, protein shake. But if you want to add that stuff in, by all means do. Sometimes I even add in like, hey, I want to do some ab mat sit-ups to finish out this workout. I did not do that today because it was hot as hell. But I'll do, you know, like 3 sets 25 or 4 sets 25 because I have to have like 100 reps. I'll do like 4 sets of 25 and plus, you know, ab mat sit-ups plus like a plank. I'll just hold like an elbow plank. I'm trying to think of other things that I'm doing. I'm doing a little bit of PT stuff for my sciatica from my torn quad right now. So I'm doing like some dragon flags and things like that, like reverse dragon flags, just whatever you want. And feel free to add on. With core work, you can't necessarily overdo it unless you have like a hernia or maybe you're recovering from like post-pregnancy or things like that. You can't necessarily overdo it unless you're also doing, the only other potential is like if you're doing really heavy weighted stuff. So you're doing like cable sit-ups, you know, where you have the cable behind you and you're doing it like at 50 to 100 pounds, then you might be able to overdo that. But if you're doing a lot of body weight stuff, I wouldn't worry about it. So feel free to add in more stuff. I mean, hell, if you want like a core finisher, I mean, I could program some core finishers and just share what I do. I might do that maybe in the app, but it's gonna be kind of boring because I'm a creature of like, hey, let me do this for 4 weeks because that's how I see progress. Like that's how we see progress. And then I'll mix it up like the next 4 weeks. So more than happy to share that though. But yeah, if you want to do more core work, by all means you can, because that was also the question that they were asking, like, hey, can I add it in? Is it going to mess anything up? And it's not. It's not at all. Just don't overdo it and don't give yourself a hernia. That's all the questions I have. I think next time I'm going to have one portal for questions because I kind of had them across like things like Instagram, messaging in the app, and like email. So if I missed your question, I apologize. If I did, let me know. Message it to me in the app, in the group, maybe, because then everyone will see it and then we can answer it. All right. I think Veronica had a question. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think your question was about like how to find motivation when it's hot outside, right? Like how to find workout motivation when it's hot outside. I'll just give you a second. You can pitch in if that's wrong. You also might be eating dinner.
No, I think that's pretty solid. I mean, we're dealing with, plus 90 degrees days out here and trying not to melt.
Yeah, no, I totally
Sometimes you
get it.
just feel like going and, I don't know, just like hibernating underneath the AC all day.
Yeah, because so I will say in full disclosure, like I've been wanting to do some bike rides, and some days I just don't want to do these afternoon bike rides. Like they're gonna just make me melt. Like even last week, and Jordan was present at like Centennial Cone. It was hot as shit. I don't know how else to say this. Like it was just hot, was it not, Jordan? It was.
I mean, I bailed. So,
I wasn't
yeah.
gonna say that. I wasn't gonna share that. That's totally up to you. I would never again out anybody about that. But like,
But no,
I wanted to bail with
having
you.
it. Yeah.
So I was like, man, this is hot. Yeah. So I will say, like, Veronica, like afternoon bike rides, I'm not the best at saying, oh, hey, this is how you find motivation. But I can give you some tips because there were some things I had to do because that was a volunteer event. I was one of the sweepers. I had to show up, and I also wanted to show up because our COMBA rides are fun, and I always love seeing that crew. So first, I'll attack that question. Hold on, let me get one sip of water. And for afternoon bike rides, big thing is try to remain as cool as you possibly can until you're kind of close to that time that you're leaving for the bike ride. So alternatively, you could of course do morning bike rides if you can, but I know that's not possible for a lot of us. A lot of us start working at some folks start working at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., healthcare workers especially. So it's not really possible unless you're like riding at like 4 a.m. with the mountain lions. 10:10 would not suggest. So you can do morning bike rides if that's an option for you. Or if it's after work, you can try to postpone it if you can, because right now, like it's 6:49, sun is still going solid right now. And I honestly could probably hit the trail right now and still have a good amount of light for another hour or so, just enough at the end for the last 15 minutes for me to maybe need to pop on my headlight or a headlamp rather. So it's one of those situations where you can just postpone your evening ride a little bit longer, which I know sounds counterintuitive, but make sure you have lights that are charged just as a backup, and you can get a quick spin in. So that's one option is I would say do later evening. So maybe not right after work, but a little bit later if you can, and it won't impact your sleep. If you can't do that, totally fine. I can get it because I'm a grandma. I like to go to bed relatively early. So I'm kind of winding down in like the 8 o'clock hour. And for me, on the earlier bike ride, like last week when we did the COMBA ride, when Jordan and I were melting, I have a neck buff. And I know I've talked about this before and I've shared the link, but it's literally because it's like the best $10 to $20 I've ever spent. I think they're $10 each. They're made by Mission, they're neck buffs, because to me, being cooler is going to motivate me to work out, even if it's really hot out. Okay, so the neck buff is cool. You just have to put it under running water, like cold water preferably. And then you wring it out and then you snap it a couple times. It comes with instructions on how to use it. And then you put it around your neck. And it really can make you feel about 10 degrees cooler. What's cool about it is it will start to get warm over time, especially when you're in over 90 to 100 degrees for some of us here in the Southwest. What's cool is it will start to get warm. So then you just turn it. So like quarter way of the ride, you just kind of turn it and you get a cooler spot on your neck. And it sounds so stupid, but it really does work. And some people also get neck buffs and they'll wrap them around their wrists. Now, for runners, I do recommend that. All right. So if you're a trail runner or just a road runner, you crazy person road running. I shouldn't say crazy, but you're not thinking straight. I'm just kidding. I used to road run, but I would recommend it for runners because it can keep your pulse points cooler. For bikers though, having a wet object close to your hands that are then on your handlebars that are made out of rubber that can be sticky, but sometimes not, can also make your gloves wet. So you might not want to do it. You can try it if you want to, totally up to you, but you can put some Mission buffs around your neck or around your wrists rather, as well as around your neck. If you wear a sports bra, stick a couple ice cubes in your sports bra, like literally like here, like I'm as flat as this table in front of me. Okay. But it will hold, I promise. Like it'll hold and it will melt. Um, and it will make you feel not so great in the moment because it's melting. You have melting ice cubes in your sports bra. This is just weird, Jen. This is the strangest suggestion ever. I know what you're thinking, but it does help keep that core cool. All right. And I'm only using that suggestion because that's a suggestion from a firefighter friend of mine. And firefighters are literally trained on how to stay cool because they are right next to the fires. And you know, anytime you have an ice bucket, maybe take an ice bucket, put it in your car, have it ready for not an ice bucket, a cooler. What's the word? A cooler. Maybe the workout beforehand is impacting me, but have a cooler, have some ice in there from your freezer. And then after your ride, immediately just start to cool yourself down. And the big thing are pulse points here. So inner wrist, neck, chest area, and then also your armpit. That's a huge one. So you're going to see firefighters doing that. That's why they have like literally bags of ice, especially with wildfires. They're down and they come down like the hot shots right now who are working out in Yosemite. They're going to come down at the end of their day. I think they're on day 7 right now, but they're going to have like literally bags of ice placed on them at the end of that time, just because it's going to feel really good. It's going to feel really refreshing, and it can help you have something to look forward to while you're on your mountain bike ride and you're sweating and you're cursing because you feel like you're riding on lava and the sun. So you have something to look forward to when you get back to your car, and that can also just help motivate that bike ride just a little bit more. All right. Because again, it's kind of like the treat at the end. Maybe you can throw in like a popsicle in there or a couple of popsicles for your friends, you know, so that way you have something again to look forward to afterwards. Because having something at the end at the goalpost is really going to help, increase your motivation to get out, ride, switch your ass off. If it comes to garage workouts, I just did a garage workout. Our garage is really hot. It doesn't have any vents at all. It is insulated, but during like 100-degree days like today, I mean, it was still in the 90s inside the garage. So it was one of those things. It was actually warmer in the garage than outside. So I aired it out. I have a tower fan. So for those of you that have a garage gym, I have a tower fan and I put that on rotate, and that helps a lot. You can also wear, again, the mission buff, you know, while you're working out. I didn't today. I just kind of had to suck it up. But my motivation was also just to make myself as cool as possible, ventilate the garage as best as I could, get the fan going, and then just try not to be distracted. You know, I wasn't on my phone until I was taking pictures of Milo at the end, which I'll post here in a minute. But you know, just trying to stay focused too, because sometimes like I'm guilty of this. I'll start answering like questions in the app while I'm working out. You know, especially if I have my laptop out in the garage. So now I've just stopped taking the laptop out and I just have it on my phone. And when I have my own workout pulled up, I actually can't see any other person's questions pop up because I'm a client in the app. So I usually just stay on there. Don't even get on Instagram if I can. Don't do XYZ. Like there are certain boundaries that I set. So setting boundaries can really help with motivation increase too, because that's your time. And that's your time for you to connect with yourself and your body and your goals. Kind of a long-winded answer, but it's something I'm so passionate about because motivation can be so fleeting, especially when it's hot as hell. And I feel like as long as you can find ways to keep yourself cool, and then just tell yourself, like I kind of told myself, because the garage was really hot when I got out there, and I was like, Jen, you're a coach. I'm coaching yourself. I'm coaching myself now. And what I told myself was like, hey, let me at least get the warm up, see how I feel. And I was hot, but once I got through the warm up, I'm like, you know, this actually feels really good. And I did take away, so I did day 1, the deadlift focus. So I did take away the foam rolling and the hip internal rotation out in the beginning, because I'm like, I can do that, you know, before I can do that afterwards, rather as a cool down after the Zoom call tonight. So there's some things that sometimes I'll do like movement snacks with, which I'm going to do a video for you all on. But I'll look at the workout and say, okay, I'll do the second superset to warm up, like the bandit pancake stretch, the hip airplane and things like that. And definitely the seated dumbbell good morning. I'm loving those right now. And then I'll get into heavy lifting. And then by that time, I'm feeling really good. I'm not feeling overly heated because I'm standing in front of the fan. And then I did the last superset. So it's one of those things, like, feel free to take away things that you need to. And maybe there's something you can do inside the house, which for me, like, I know I can do the last superset for sure inside the house, which is the elevated split squats with the straddle, like the straddle pike leg lift, if I remember that's what it's called, right? So I knew that I could do like that in the house if I needed to. But that's another way to keep kind of motivation high, is just start with a warm up, see how you feel. And of course, if at any point, if it's overly hot and you're feeling really lightheaded or feeling unsafe, then just call it. Call an audible, get some hydration and get some electrolytes in. Make sure you have some potassium in you, especially, and some sodium. But, you know, there are some ways to kind of stay cool. And I'm rambling, but it's something I'm so passionate about. And I'm going to stop talking. But hopefully that kind of gave you some ideas and can give you something to kind of play around with in your future rides or training sessions. And feel free also, Veronica, to expand on like maybe there's a time in the week or time in the month that you feel less motivated, or, you know, if there's something else that I can kind of expand on, let me know. Jordan, did you have a question? Oh, no, wait, Veronica, unmute it.
I was just going to say thanks. And then to your point about some of these movements that you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
you know, as I was at the bike park the week before last, yeah, I can totally see why you program calves now.
Yeah, it's so stupid. It's so stupid, and it totally takes me back to like bodybuilding days. But you know what? It just feels so good because, man, especially when you're doing those like longer descents and you're in that that dorsiflexion is what we call it. A dorsiflexion, like imagine my hand is my foot, but you're in that dorsiflexion position. My God. And then your tibialis, like your front, that can get tired really easily. So my plan is on the template for the next cycle is to start doing more of the tib raises again, like we did several weeks ago, kind of reintroducing that again, because hey, it's middle of the season and like I want us to not feel like we're going to burn up. So thank you for sharing that, because that makes me super happy. I'm glad you can kind of feel it. But definitely get in that end range if it helps. I have another client who's a PT, and she has really tight ankles. So it's one of those situations where like we're working on that, and like this ankle stuff just, it makes such a game changer. You know, not only if you have ankle mobility issues, but also knee stuff too, because sometimes knees, like you can have issues with your knees or your hips, but it kind of starts a little bit at your ankles because you're just trying to compensate a little bit, but it's all subconscious because the human body is smart. The human body is going to figure out how to get you from point A to point B. And sometimes we'll develop some compensations in the process, like me with sciatica after tearing my quad because I couldn't walk around on my one leg for a little while. So I depended on my left, and that just threw everything out. So it's one of those things. It just happens. It's the human body, though. It's amazing, even if it's a pain in the ass. Jordan, did you have any questions? No. Excellent. Well, thanks for joining. Any other questions, Veronica?
Not off the top of my head right now,
All right, cool.
but I'll make sure to send one in if I get some.
Yeah. No, I love this. And then next topic is TBD. Because I'm going to do a video on the movement stacks because I owe everyone that since, oh my goodness, between like the app crashing for like just a small percentage of users, but still is enough to like drive me bonkers. And then being in San Diego, I could not film with the whole Navy going overhead. I owe everyone a video. So I'm going to talk about some movement stacks and just how to do it and give you all ideas. And I'm going to keep it pretty quick. I'm going to keep it to like probably 10 minutes. That way it's easy to watch at any point. You can kind of understand how to do movement stacks and just examples on how I do it. But yeah, I'm actually hoping the next call, I'm going to do it in about 4-ish weeks. So probably the week of August 15th, if I'm not mistaken. Just to kind of get us a little bit more on a cycle, and then it'll be every 6 to 8 weeks again. But I want to make it up to you folks, because my goodness, that stuff was unexpected. Wasn't expecting San Diego to be so loud. I mean, it was a part of San Diego I've never been to. So cool. Well, if you ever have any questions, I'm just a message away. And I will get this recording up on YouTube, but make it private for just the Shred Strongers. And again, appreciate y'all. Appreciate you all. I'm starting to sound like my North Carolina. And I'm always here if you ever have any questions. All right. I'll see you, Jordan, at the next ride, hopefully. I think it's, for those of you in Denver area, the next COMBA Women's Ride is August 9th. It's the second Tuesday of every month. And we only have a couple more rides left. So it's August 9th. We're doing Green Mountain. So there's going to be like a variety of different routes we can do. Again, beginner, intermediate, advanced, doesn't really matter. We can't get too advanced at Green Mountain, but the advanced riders just ride faster. So even if we're doing the same route, they're just going faster.
I think they were talking about switching August and September.
I hope so, because Green Mountain in August is going to be, I'm going to need to take some of my tips that I just shared and like
an ounce of shade on Green Mountain.
No, there's no shade. So Veronica and like other folks who don't live in the Denver area, Green Mountain is fully exposed. There is absolutely no shade unless you're behind the mountain at sunset, and it can get really hot. So they're in North Table Mountain. North Table Mountain does have a little bit more shade, but I mean, I wouldn't even call it shade. It's again exposed, and it's in a desert in Golden. So that would be great. Did they talk about where? Maybe
I think they were just going to switch August and September.
Okay, September is Three Sisters. Okay, good. That would be great, and I would highly recommend that, because I won't be around in September that week. But yeah, in August I definitely will be. So sweet. Thanks for that glimmer of news, Jordan. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I hope they do. I think I'd love to see if they have it.
Yeah, no, it'd be so much better. Well, sweet. All right, thanks for joining me, and I'll get this up as soon as I can today. Gonna stop recording.